Hello, Tungsten Miner here. For those who have been following along this Let's Play series, you'll notice that I haven't published any videos for a little while because I've been on vacation. I did manage to do a little bit of playing here and there in the evening hours, but I wasn't able to do any recording because I didn't bring any recording equipment with me. So now that I'm back again, let's catch you up on how things have come along while I was away. Okay, back here at my little farm, inside not much has changed except that I've been collecting a bunch of seeds. So one of the things I did while I was away is exploring, found a bunch of villages, a whole lot of different seeds, and I wound up finding that I was filling up these two chests here. As you can see, I'm partway through the process of sorting things out and have decided that I'm just going to keep the seeds for the plants in the same cabinets where I keep the results of the plants themselves. Should be a little bit easier to sort things out. As a consequence, I no longer have any of my plants out here in the gardens, and I expanded this garden patch by another row. That should give me, I think, enough room to be able to plant everything that I have now found with a little room to spare. Over here, I managed to complete my growth and expansion. So these, remember, are for crossbreeding plants, and these over here are for breeding them up to stronger and stronger levels. I'm in creative mode at the moment, so I'm just going to zip over here. And I am getting a lot of lag on my machine today for no good reason I can think of. But here we are. Okay, so back to my little forest here. What you can see is that I've been growing these trees, and a little odd thing has been happening, that the tree in the center, the one that's nearest to the world spike, I'm using the Railcraft world spikes, seems to grow a lot more than the others. That was 19 logs, this is 7 logs, this is 7 logs, so all the rest of these are pretty small by comparison. No idea why. Posted a little something on the Discord channel for Railcraft and hoping to hear back soon. But we'll find out. In any case, these are about ready to harvest again. Should be a decent amount of wood. Getting back to the roads here, we can see that I have started the process of adding in some railroads. They don't go terribly far as yet, but I have managed to get them to go pretty much around to the farm and back over here to the workshop. And right away, you can see one of the major differences from last time is that I have built this structure and added a windmill to it. So this gets you a smallish amount of power, but it's enough for getting started with. Not really much in here, just wires going up to the Kinetic Dynamo at the top. And we can see that's that block right there. It's creating a little bit of power that it transmits into this LV wire connector using low voltage, because honestly, it doesn't produce enough power to warrant having even medium voltage. And then that goes down to here, which goes through this block. So the way you set something up like this is just an andesite block that's been shaped, changed to pattern with chisel. And then I placed this LV wire connector, mind you, connector, not relay. I made that mistake, on both sides of it. So there's one here, and if we go outside, we can see there's one exactly opposite it right here. And then you just right click with an engineering hammer, and it changes this block in between the two of them into this special feed through kind of relay block. So you don't have to have a hole in the wall for wires to run through. You don't have to use a capacitor to have a solid block to connect things through, and it looks exactly like it did before. So you can't even tell that that's there. But very handy when you're trying to make wires go through and into buildings. This post here is an extendable post from the Immersive Post mod. Basically, it looks exactly the same as the post that you get from Immersive Engineering, except all you get is this post. So if we look at Immersive Post, we can see that's this guy right here. Very simple, stone bricks and cobblestone. You get a whole bunch of them. And then you can add a lot of different kinds of things to these posts. So I've used treated wood fence, but you can use all the various kinds of metal fences and a whole bunch of other things. And as you right click on this bottom of the post, it just adds it to the top and keeps extending this higher and higher. This doesn't work when you've got things on it, right? So that couldn't have been there when I was adding things, or just wouldn't add it. So when I was done getting the post as high as I wanted, I climbed up there. And these do work like ladders, so you actually can just climb right up and added on that relay, and then connected the wires from one place to the other place. Over here, I've got my little sheep farm because I needed wool and string at one point. The building has made a little bit of progress, not a ton to be honest. But the most important thing that I did while I was away is over in this next room. And you'll notice, if you recall, those two devices were actually in here because I have now made myself, finally, a crusher. Now, this is a fairly expensive piece of machinery. If you've used Immersive Engineering before, you'll realize there's a lot of iron that goes into building one of these things. In fact, let me go and grab my book. There we are. So, in Immersive Engineering, make yourself your engineer's manual. I should probably just show the recipe for that really quick. So just a book with a lever, and you get this engineering manual. It has absolutely everything you need to know about immersive engineering in it. The thing in this case is I've got a bit of heavy machinery, which is this crusher. And as you can see, it's got a lot of pieces to it. Which, if I click down, I can show you just the layers. So a bunch of steel scaffolding, light engineering blocks. These are steel fences. This is a redstone engineering block. And then finally a whole bunch of hoppers on the top. At this stage of the game, that's a lot of material. So a lot of what I was doing while I was away is just gathering lots of iron, gathering lots of materials, and then grinding them up using the crushing hammer. So you remember in this mod pack, you can't just smelt raw ore. So like if I say iron ore, and look at this, the uses of it, I can crush it with an ore crushing hammer, I can toss it into a crushing machine, or I can throw it into an arc furnace. And what is notably absent is I can't just put this in a regular furnace and have it smelt the ore. So I need to make one of these ore crushing hammers, and the recipe for this requires some flint, string, and actually just any kind of plain smooth stone. So not cobblestone, but regular stone. And a couple of sticks, you got your hammer. But they get used up really, really fast. So you wind up making a lot of these if you're trying to do a lot of ore processing. So much better is to build yourself a crusher, and then you get double the iron grit. So crushing hammer only gets you one, this gets you two. And you get the gravel from the stone part, which actually for doing a lot of Railcraft stuff, you want a lot of gravel anyway. So that's super helpful to get both of those together. So I made it my top priority to get that far, but this requires a lot of parts to make it. And so what I actually wound up making first is this metal press. And I've got one mold for making a plate. The one I've got in there, shift right click to remove it, is for making rods. I needed to make some wires, but I didn't have enough steel, so I just did those by hand, which in this case, wire in Brunel, you start by getting a copper plate. The recipe for that is you can use your crushing hammer to flatten out an ingot, and then you use the copper plate to clip it with some shears or engineering wire cutters, and that will get you some copper wire. And that way you can do the internal wiring bits that you need for this machine over here. I also created myself an engineering workbench and an engineer blueprint, which is a steel plate, some blue dye. Brunel also has dyes that are a little different than regular vanilla dyes. You can take your lapis lazuli and water and any kind of mortar and pestle, or you can mix up light blue dye and black dye. Black dye itself can be made by coal dust or charcoal dust. And the light blue dye actually is easy to make from orchids. And since I live near a flower forest biome, looking at my map over here, this whole area down here is all flower forest. I found that to be the more convenient way to get blue dye. As I came down here and picked some orchids, took some charcoal, crushed it up, and that got me my blue dye. Paper just from the recipe using sugar canes. That was easy enough. And that gave me this, which allowed me to make iron mechanical components. So if we look at those iron mechanical components in Brunel, there are two ways to make these things. One of them is a great deal more expensive than the other. So here we've got 4 iron plates and a copper ingot, but on the engineer's workbench, you can take 2 plates and a copper ingot and get the same thing. So much better off to do it on the workbench, and therefore it's worthwhile to make one. That got me all the parts and pieces and whatnot. I wound up doing a lot of wiring. This is the same feed through that just feeds through the whole course of the building. That brings me down to the other end over here, which I still don't have a roof for because I got tired of gathering lots of clay. Anyway, brings us back down to the crusher, and finally I was able to set things up to crush all of those ores. This box has an extracting conveyor belt. This is an vertical conveyor belt. The whole system then drops things just straight into the top of the crusher, and all of the output comes through this into this chest right here. And this is a result of taking some orange terracotta I found a while back and running it through. So the recipe for orange dye, ordinarily you want to crush up flowers or mix some dyes together, but you can also get it from crushing, in this case, orange terracotta. And you have a very small percentage chance of getting some dye back again, but you always get some clay. And that saved me a little bit more clay hunting to finally get a roof on this place. Get there eventually. I also made this small electrical furnace. This is one that comes from the Engineer's Decor mod. It's not exactly cheap, requires a fair bit of steel plate or iron plate. I made mine with iron plate, of course, so that you then take some conveyor belts, a furnace in the center, any kind of connector, and you get yourself a small electrical furnace. The Engineer Decor had a whole bunch of these little machines. They're single block machines. They don't do a ton, so they makes sense. They're in scale with the large multi-blocks that come with Immersive Engineering, but they can be a little complicated to understand the interface. So this little gadget right here tells you that this is heated, which it is not at the moment, so it's all gray. But just like a regular furnace, you'll see the little flames creeping up as it gets hot. This indicates how much power it has stored, and these will drain off as the internal buffer gets used up. And then this is how quickly does it process material. So I can say a little bit faster, and you can see this is kind of barely filled in. This is kind of halfway filled in. I can move it to here, which is fastest, and that's all the way filled in. Or I can actually even disable the furnace altogether, so it just won't smelt anything. So I keep it on the lowest setting because I've only got a little windmill at this point. And then feeding things in here, it's got an orange side, and you can't see it, but that's the blue side over there, using the standard convention from thermal expansion. So a crate to put things into that need smelting, hopper sucks them in, drops them in the furnace. And then I'm using a dropping conveyor belt to drop them into this wooden storage crate. Nice and compact. This is my Carpenter filled with creosote. That comes out, of course, from my, not the slide furnace, the other one. Oh, the name will come to me eventually. But in any case, this is how I'm making railroad ties. And then I've got a manual rolling machine that I found in a village someplace, and that's what I use for making rails. The coke oven, there it is. I told you it would come to me. So I've got some more creosote oil that I need to transfer over to the other machine. I've got some coal coke for making steel. I've already got a good amount over there. I don't want to destroy that, so I'll just toss that over there. And then I've got my alloy kiln here for when I need to make brass or bronze or any of the other alloys that I use. Still working on the roof. Let me sleep a moment, and then we can go check out some more things. Okay, back again. Let's check out a few more things here before we head on. Not a lot has changed here. I've got more supplies of stuff. I found some gold on some villages in the blacksmith's chests and some expeditions to the south. Remember, I had been collecting a bunch of ores and not processing them because I knew I wouldn't be getting doubled. But now that I've got my crusher over there, I've gotten all those ores processed. I've been keeping my survivalist pickaxes. That's what these guys are up here. Because eventually I will be able to process them to get back, I think, 2 bronze ingots, which of course I can use for making more pickaxes. Over here, I've got now a lot of extra metals, not iron, of course, because that gets used up pretty fast, but nickel and zinc, tin, used for making various alloys. I made myself a steam locomotive, recipe for which I think is actually the original Railcraft recipe, so nothing new there. And eventually I'll get myself around to making a water tower and a coal bunker and the other things you kind of need before you really can use those. I've found a couple of sulfur deposits mining for iron, lots of dirt left over, lots of trees and stuff. Nothing too exciting in here. So I think that's about it for this place. And I think there's one last thing to really take a peek at, which as we go out here, we can see the rail bridge is extending over here to the farm. Boy, I don't usually have so much lag problems. I'll have to look into that. But as you can see, I've extended this road very far to the south because, one, that continent to the south has my swamp mine in it, and I want to be able to get to that a little more easily. 2, I wanted to be able to make a nickel mine, because you need that for a bunch of different things, which is where we're going now. Here we are. So this is the same shack that I use for pretty much all of my mining operations. We've seen a bunch of these already, nothing surprising here. And then down here, this just goes straight down to about level 12, which is the optimal place to find nickel in the Brunel mod pack. Notice there's diorite that's found in taiga biomes of various kinds. And then this tunnel pretty much just goes straight on until you run out of taiga biome. It doesn't quite reach the end, but it's pretty close. And then I've filled in everything with cobblestone stairs. The big reason for doing this, incidentally, is food. Because jumping uses a lot more of your kind of food energy than walking does. And stairs count as walking, whereas jumping counts as jumping. And so you wind up going through your food a lot faster if you're running up and down non-stairs and jumping. And this finally heads as far south as the beach. And eventually what will happen down here, I think, is I will want to set up some kind of dock. And I might even go so far as to try and figure out how More Boats does its automated navigation. Because in More Boats, More Boats, they have this mapping table block. And I've never used it before. I'm curious to try it out, but the theory is that you take an ordinary Minecraft map, plop it down in the user interface that this thing gives you, and it allows you then to create a map with a path by clicking on different points on the map to say, I want the boat to go here, 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 in different places. And that allows you to create an automated kind of ferry service. Now, of course, you need to set up your boats so that they've got an engine and they've got fuel and they've got ropes connecting them to the various other boats that are going to carry your cargo. You've got these redstone conductors and comparators. You've got various kinds of loaders and chargers so that you can move things into and out of the boats. Haven't played with any of this stuff, so I'm very curious to give it a try and see how it works. Apart from that, I think that's kind of it. As I said, I didn't have a lot of time to play while I was on vacation, because I was mostly checking out all sorts of stuff in the places I traveled to. But I did get a few things moved further along, and now you are up to date. And I pretty much intend to go back to my roughly daily schedule for this Let's Play series from here. So that's it for now. Talk to you later.